When it comes to self-development, no matter the method you use, the vital point is to practice. If you're ready to transform your life and claim the potential inside of you, then you're in the right place. Welcome to The Vital Point. I'm your host, Jonathan Schecter. I'm a psychedelic integration and transformation coach, breathwork facilitator, and an enthusiast of personal growth. You have the capacity to evolve and bring your intentions and dreams into the world, and there's never been more access to so many incredible modalities that can help you on your journey. This podcast will help you learn simple methods you can use to transform your life and share the stories of practitioners who are doing the work so that you feel inspired to go and practice, because that's the vital point. Today's guest is Cesar Marin. His life was transformed after his first psychedelic experience at the age of 55. In less than 2 months, he went from having a corporate six-figure job to being the founder and owner of a lifestyle and apparel brand dedicated to people who want to manifest and celebrate that microdosing psilocybin has changed their lives. He's a big believer that if those who have healed through plant medicine heal in silence, then what is the purpose? His mission is to cultivate wisdom by offering apparel which starts honest and provocative conversations in the hopes of lifting the stigmas associated with psychedelics. And he's someone that I've been super impressed with in the short time that I've known him. He's definitely living his vision and his mission, which is something that I find quite admirable. So Cesar, welcome to the Vital Point podcast.
Jonathan, thank you very much. First of all, thank you for inviting me to the Vital Point. I'm a true believer, like I said, that if you heal in silence, there's not, what's the purpose? And you, my friend, are definitely one who advocates healing, not only from what you've lived it yourself, but through getting people to sort of see the wonders of this. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for helping so many people heal, giving them the tools to be able to find their authentic self. So appreciate you and thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, so happy that you're here. So we talked a little bit in the intro just about, the bullet points of your story, but I want to jump in and get more into how you got here. How did you find psychedelics and that one life-changing trip? Because I mean, that's something that a lot of people are looking for.
That's wow, Jonathan. That's a great question because it is a wonderful story. It's a wonderful story how at the age of, I was actually 54, just about to turn 55, went out of a recreational curiosity. That was my first dive into psychedelics. At the time, I was a cannabis addict, not a cannabis user, not a cannabis recreational user. I was a cannabis addict. Cannabis was controlling my life. And through an experience that someone very close to me had, they told me how they felt like a child. They felt like a child having this psychedelic experience. They had used psilocybin on a trip during the 4th of July. And the message I got was I felt like a child. So the recreational curiosity started to poke in my mind. Weeks later, someone else sort of talked about the wonderments of how they felt like a child after eating mushrooms. They were on a bike ride that I do on Monday nights in Atlanta. And the curiosity then really, really peaked. And that sort of led me to having my first experience, which was funny because unbeknownst to me, my first experience was a microdose and not a dose because I had facilitated a chocolate bar of which I took 2 pieces. I did not know at the time anything about microdose, mini dose, macrodose. I thought it was just like any other substance where you take some and you get high. And again, like I said, it was a recreational curiosity that sort of took me to this moment in my life. And it was weird because I felt something, I felt a smile, but I didn't feel what I was looking for, which was obviously to get high. A week later, I decided to have half of the chocolate bar. And that is truly, I think, the moment. It was the week before Halloween. It was the Monday before Halloween of last year where everything really just incredibly opened up. I got the sense of wonderment of what my body felt like, of what I felt like, of what it felt like to breathe, of what it felt like to sense the trees, of what it felt like to feel the air. And it was a magical, magical moment. And right away, I got totally enthralled with psychedelics. And back then, I was a journalist at one of the major broadcast networks. And like a good journalist, I just started to research everything I could about psychedelics and, just dove head first and realized real quickly that psychedelics were being used as medicine, and that piqued my interest. And as I read more, how it was being used for people who were battling with depression, people battling with anxiety, people battling with PTSD, I came across the fact that there's people using it for addiction. And something inside of me said, that might be the elixir. And Jonathan, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a big believer that the addict, the addict is controlled not by the heart, but by the mind. Because the heart is always going to want you to stop your addiction. It's the mind who is that double-edged sword and wants to play tricks on you and says, you know what? Just one more and we'll stop. Just one more drink and I promise you we won't drink anymore. Just one more hand and I promise you we'll stop gambling. Just one more vape and I swear we will never do this again. So it's coming across psychedelics and medicine and coming across the term microdosing that the heart said, listen, 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 listen. And it was amazing how I started to microdose on November 7th. I sat with my intentions November 6th. I did a little video journal that is on some of my social media, and how from one day to the next, the psilocybin, the microdosing, the intention worked immediately. Immediately. I stopped vaping November 7th. I was vaping a cannabinoid derivative. That's how I was getting high on cannabis. But very quickly, the heart took over. The heart and the medicine took over, and I was able to break an addiction that had controlled me for most of my adult life, to then being this new authentic self. And through that, psychedelics have now become a powerful and integral part of my life. And it's become my mission to, one, share my story with everyone I can, everyone that wants to listen. And at the same time, poke at people's childhood curiosity, because there are a lot of people interested in this. There are a lot of people interested in what plant medicine and especially psychedelic medicine. And because mushrooms are a bit more organic and they come from the earth, people are interested in that. It's now my mission to help people a bit with their fears, a bit with what their trepidation is. But it is amazing how in just 4 months since the first mini dose, which then turned into a microdosing practice, which was in November, I've gotten to the point where being so in tuned, in love, and finding so much pleasure in myself and who I am, that it's amazing. And I want to share this with everyone. So that's sort of how this started. This all started how, I've never had a psychedelic experience in my life until 55, 54. And it transformed my world. It transformed my life. And I want to let people know that this is possible. There's some keys that need to be done. You might notice I'm not a fan of the word magic mushrooms, because I think the magic comes from the human. The magic doesn't come from the mushrooms. You can take all the mushrooms you want and sit there on the couch and not do anything. Nothing's going to happen. But there is some work that needs to go into it. So in a long, short answer, that's how I get to this point, Jonathan.
Yeah. And I appreciate that you bring up those, the keys, as you put that, that the experience of mushrooms or other entheogens, other psychedelics, is a little bit different than Western medicine. I think we're sort of conditioned to think, oh, I'm just going to take this pill or whatever, and then that's it. The medicine is doing the work. And psychedelics don't work exactly like that, as you know. I think you would agree. Like, obviously, they're
Yes.
These incredible medicines that are doing incredible things on a molecular level, on a mental level, working on the heart, as you mentioned. But in a lot of ways, they are also just sort of pointing the way to some of the work that needs to be done within our lives, the things that need to change. So what are some other keys besides that are important to you in terms of your practice?
Yeah, I believe that there's a couple keys that are really necessary for a psychedelic practice or a psychedelic experience to have its full effect, its full wonderful wonderment effect. One, I'm a big believer in intentions. Intentions are incredibly important. I feel that intentions are you giving the medicine a roadmap of what you're intending to do, what you're looking for. As I start to microdose, my intentions were obviously to stop vaping, to stop using cannabis, to get over this addiction. At the time, I knew that the writing was on the wall, that my corporate job was on the line because of a takeover, a merger of another company. So I wanted to know what came next. How was I going to get to that next step in my life, that next chapter in my life? So intentions are a big part, and intentions, I tell people, need to be on a daily basis, and your intentions can be the same every day. You want to be a better human. You want to hug more. You want to smile more. You want to finish that project that's there in front of your desk. You want to be more creative. You want to be more in tune with yourself. So intentions are a big part of this. And then, of course, integration is just as important, I feel, as the dosage and the medicine itself, because that is where you take what you've learned. That is where you take what the medicine has taught you and you put it into everyday life and everyday experiences. I myself, I use the Fadiman protocol, which calls for 1 day on, 2 days off. The idea is, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard about it, a day of dosage, a day transition, a day integration. So that dosage day, of course, you feel the wonderments of the medicine. You feel, your life is wonderful. Life is great. I don't need these outside things that are bothering me or distracting me. The second day, that transition day, is you transitioning out of the medicine. You're sort of saying, hey, you know what, yesterday I got that bit of that anxious feeling. How did I deal with it? Let me sort of transition and see how I can sort of deal with that anxiety today. But the most important day, the most important, fundamental, crucial day to me is that integration day. That integration day where, for me, the mind might have crept in and said, hey, you know what, let's go back to what we were doing before. And I said, no, let me sort of integrate what I've learned. Let me sort of take some breaths. Let me go outside and take a walk. Let me integrate into some meditation. Let me integrate into some journaling. Let me integrate what I've learned, what my body and the medicine has taught me to do, to then move forward. I've had 2 macro journeys since the start of my psychedelic practice. I had one on my birthday, November 16th, in which I had intentions again of seeing where I was going, what was going to happen, what held me back, and what I learned in that day. I was able to integrate it into my everyday life. One was I went back to some childhood trauma, of some disciplinary actions from my dad, which I was able to come to grips with. And the integration part of it was like, don't fear. Like, before, you had fear of failure, you had fear of consequences if something went wrong. So I was able to, not that my dad needed forgiveness, because that's how he grew up. That's how he felt I might sort of learn a better lesson. So, I love my dad to death. I mean, he's an amazing human. But the medicine taught me to say, hey, that's what's holding you back. Now integrate that into your everyday life. So I've been able to integrate that journey to letting myself know, don't fear consequences. Don't fear repercussions if you fail, because that's not what's going to happen. So that integration part is an incredible moment. I have this adage that I say, that the integration is, if someone cuts you off in the highway, you're going to sit there and blow on the horn and shoot on the bird, or you're going to integrate and say, you know what? I don't need that energy. That other person's not feeling what I'm feeling. I'm the only one poisoning myself with that. And that's part of integration. Yeah. So we all integrate in our own way. But like you said, Jonathan, and you profess this every time I see you, integration is integral. Integration is a really important part of this practice. One, because it's going to help you, guide you to what the medicine has taught you. But it's part of the healing process. It's part of the healing process of being in touch with oneself. I mean, the medicine can only do so much. It's up to us. It's up to us, the human, to do that. And through integration is how we move forward, how we integrate into that world. I love watching you as you use, cold baths into your integration, because that is part of integration. And we've had, you asked me the other day, because we were talking about, the difference between cold shower integration and tub integration. And I've come to the realization that shower integration, because of the brain freeze that you get, that is why that integration is a little bit, I'm not going to say more difficult, but it's a little bit more challenging. It's a little bit more challenging. But again, that's part of integration. That's part of that breathing, that controlling yourself, that letting yourself know that anything is possible. I mean, the human mind is a beautiful, wonderful thing. The human heart is a wonderful, beautiful thing. And if we use those, both of them, to integrate what the plant medicine has taught us, we can do anything we want. We can transform into anything we would desire.
Mm, beautiful. Yeah. And thank you for sharing that um, experience about your dad and kind of what you learned and took away from it. Yeah, integration is really so key. Like, I was saying this yesterday, and it sort of comes from, for me, it comes from this Buddhist idea, that when things are going well, you don't really know how good or bad you're doing. It's hard to judge.
Yes.
Life is easy when everything's going well. It's when we
Yeah.
have adversity or those same patterns or the same behavior, like you said, getting cut off in traffic or something that might have really thrown us off before. When that comes up and we have the opportunity to handle it differently, that's really, to me, when you can tell like how well you're doing if you're actually integrating. Because otherwise, it's, when life's easy, it's easy to say, man, everything's going well, I
Mm.
got this, the medicine is helping me. But what are you going to do when the shit hits the fan, basically?
Exactly.
And so that
Exactly. Exactly.
and I think it's, that's one reason that, for me, like the cold water exposure is so important, is it gives, those adverse experiences give us the opportunity to practice what we're working on, right? So like,
Yes, definitely.
without somebody cutting me off in traffic, or without the stress of getting into an ice bath, sometimes I'm not sure how well I've actually integrated the things that I'm working on. So
Mm. Yeah.
I'm really grateful for those experiences. And thank you also for, mentioning the importance of intention. Um, Again, for me, like, intention is comes down to this Buddhist idea, and like I've said this before, of like, well, what makes meditation or anything that you're doing, quote unquote Buddhist? A lot of it is intention, because there's all kinds of different
Yeah.
meditation and different traditions that are using meditation. But one thing that I've learned from Buddhism is, like, before you sit down and you start to meditate, you set an intention. You bring that to mind. You create that container of, this is what I'm doing. And like you said, the intention changes everything. It organizes you. It, kind of focuses you. And it's almost like this very powerful method of getting clear about, what am I doing, and why am I doing it? And it's a really important thing. So thank you for sharing that as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like I said, intentions are the start, right? The integration is in other words, the two, the two side barriers that you have is intention and
Mm.
integration. The medicine itself, yeah, the practice is beautiful, but it's those bookends that you have that sort of puts that whole chapter together, puts the whole book together.
Yeah.
So they're just as important as the medication. I mean, I tell people, and I've come across people who, one, they say, yeah, I'm microdosing. And I'm like, okay, well, what protocol are you on? They're like, no, no, I'm just,
Hmm.
I'm like, well, that's not really microdosing. That's not. And I tell them, look, that's beautiful that you're using the medicine, but,
Yeah.
but if you use it with intention and you integrate what you're doing, it's going to be a much more profound experience. It's going to be a much more profound experience. I equate it to, and anyone obviously who's had a psychedelic experience knows what the afterglow is.
Hmm.
To me, being on a good regimented protocol is being in a constant afterglow.
Hmm.
That's exactly what it is. You just consistently, we're living in the now, which I'm a big believer that that's where we need to live. The past to me is, if you dwell too much in it, it's an open door to depression. And living too much in the future is an open door to anxiety. So that afterglow, that being on a good, consistent protocol with your dosage being consistent, with your protocol being consistent, you're on that constant afterglow, and it's that intention and it's the integration of the practice that makes that afterglow continuous.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of dosage, I'm curious, because I know, like, I microdose myself, and just talking with other people and reading and doing research just like yourself, I've found that it seems like there's sort of two camps in terms of the microdosing, uh, besides for Fadiman and the Stamets protocol.
Stamets protocol, yeah.
But I feel like there's some people that consider a microdose what I would consider, I don't know, I guess, what's the term? Like some people call it like a museum dose, or like a
Museum dose,
twinkle.
yeah, yeah.
You're actually feeling something in
Yeah,
the medicine. You're
yeah.
feeling something like, okay, I know that
Mm,
I took some medicine.
mm.
For me, that's maybe about like a fifth of a gram, like point two.
Correct,
And then there's some
correct.
people that feel like microdosing should be completely subperceptual. Like I don't really know that I took something. Maybe after a few days, if because I use the Stamets protocol myself. So
Okay,
after a few days, like I'll notice, okay, I can tell something's happening. Like I feel that glow, like you mentioned, but I'm
yeah.
not necessarily feeling it in the moment, day to day. So
Mm,
what are your
exactly.
thoughts on that, and what kind of dosage are you using?
Yeah. So again, I think that it's really important for everyone, every individual, to educate themselves. I mean, that's first and foremost. Like I tell people, don't microdose because I
Mm,
microdose. Please do not microdose because Caesar said he's microdosing and he's look how wonderful he is. No, use that as an example, but microdose because you've educated yourself, you've sort of read about different protocols, you've read about different dosage, and then it's hit or miss. My dosage, my protocol is my
mm,
protocol. It's mine. I'm going to be totally hovered around it because that's what works for me. So everyone has to sort of play around and find their own sweet spot. I have found that for me, between 240 250 milligrams is where I don't feel I don't feel like I'm on anything. I don't feel and it was funny because I am one of those persons that if on a higher dosage, on a museum dose, on a little bit more, I have this tendency to start yawning. The yawns come
uh-huh.
on. And as I sort of found what my sweet spot was, it was finding the dosage that didn't have me
Yeah.
yawn, that didn't have me at that point where, and it wasn't like I was yawning because it was just what the medicine did. It was just what, people might think, oh, well, what am I, you're bored of what I'm saying, or what are you sleepy? No, it's just something that the medicine does to some of
Right.
us. So for me, it was sort of finding that spot that didn't put me in that yawning situation, but that I knew it was there. So you're right. For me, it's very subperceptual. For me, it's, if I found that I was yawning, if I found that I was a little bit lightheaded, then, I came down and I started, like most people, I started low. I started at 150 milligrams, worked my way up a little bit after each dosage, then got to that point where I was like, oh, this isn't, you know what I mean? I'm sort of yawning. There's something there. And then have found that 240, 250 milligram is my sweet spot. So,
Yeah.
it's everyone, like you said, everyone's different. Everyone needs to find their own sweet spot. So that is mine. That is mine and mine alone. You know what I mean? I'm gonna hold it close to my chest. Don't use that because I'm using that because I'm smiling so much because that's the use that I do. But like I said, educate yourself.
Yeah.
Educate yourself. The medicine is incredibly powerful. It's incredibly beautiful, but you do need to do your own homework. You do need to find out what is your sweet spot. I mean, I use the Fatima because it sort of works for me. I have a friend who is he's on a very high deadline, high go oriented. So he does 4 days on and 3 days off. So it's up to each individual to find what works for them.
Yeah, I find the Stamets protocol works better for me. But I also have found, and for those in the audience that might not be familiar, so Caesar mentioned the Fadiman protocol of 1 day on, 2 days off, and the Stamets is 4 days of dosing followed by 3 days off. Um, Even though I would say I follow the Stamets in general, I find especially as I get deeper into the protocol, say I'm going to do a 30-day protocol, by the second or third week, 3 days on is perfect. And like almost like the
Yeah,
fourth day, I'm not even thinking about, like, I feel good. And I'm like, I don't think I need to dose today. So
yeah,
it ends up
yeah,
kind of shifting
yeah.
into like a 3 day on, 4 day off. type of a situation. But I agree with what you said, that it's really important for people to find their own balance, their own place where they feel comfortable, and those protocols are a great guideline to start with. And
Yes.
starting low, starting with 100 to 150 um, milligrams, and then kind of working your way up. And obviously, to me and you, I think it goes without saying, but I think we should say it anyway, that you can always take more, you can't take less.
Correct.
And
Yes. Yeah.
and I've found that myself. I mean, there was one day where um I had a microdoses worth of fresh mushrooms, and so I was like, well, I don't want to get the dryer out, so I'm just going to take
Mhm.
this. And I had to cancel some meetings and log off of work because
Yeah.
it ended up being much more than a microdose.
Much more.
Even
Yeah. Much more than a
Yeah, even
microdose.
though I'm like, I don't even understand how this happened, because by
Yeah.
weight, it was, that should not be. But apparently they were the really strong
Yeah.
end of a session. So
Yeah,
um
yeah. So you're right. You're right. It is important to sort of find that low
yeah,
spot, and go from there. And it's again it sometimes can be hit or miss depending on what strain of psilocybin you're
right.
using. Of what your mindset is. So you're right. It's easier and better to start a little bit low and then work yourself from there. And then once you find that flow, once you find that glow, stay consistent. Stay consistent with your dosage. Stay consistent. I prefer to, and I know, there's chocolate bars out there, there's capsules out there, there's now gummies out there. We sort of came across gummies as we were down at Canadelic, Miami. Um, but for me, I prefer, dried mushrooms. I'll take my 2 weeks, supply of microdosing. I'll grind them just so it's a more consistent, dosage in there, or the amount of psilocybin that's in the dosage, and I'll go from there. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful medicine. It's amazing what it can do.
Yeah, you mentioned something else that's important in there, which is knowing your medicine. And that different strains of mushrooms, different grows, can have different amounts of psilocybin. So it's important, to kind of know your medicine. And if you're sourcing from different places, to make sure that you're starting slow again, as opposed to just kind of understanding where the medicine's at. I'm curious, do you stack anything, do you add anything to the psilocybin regimen that you're taking?
Yeah. Yes, I found that niacin and lion's mate, it's a wonderful complement to the microdosing practice. The lion mate just incredibly opens up the brain. We found a couple of people that have really wonderful, um, my God, what's the word for it? Not all-purpose mushrooms, but complementary mushrooms between cordyceps and reishi. Functional, that's the word. I'm sorry, functional mushrooms, that we've added into our practice, my wife and I, and it's wonderful. I mean, mushrooms are going to save the world. I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer that mushrooms are going to help guide us into this next millennial, whether it's through their properties of how they help the environment or how they help us heal. I think mushrooms, if we open up our minds, and I tell everyone, because again, that stigma exists, the stigma around psychedelics, the stigma around mushrooms. And again, the reason why I'm not a fan of the word magic mushrooms and I prefer to use psilocybin, still exist. And it's up to us, the ones who have seen the wonders of mushrooms and the wonders of medicine, to open up other people's eyes. And I always go, you know what? Sit down with your family members and go, you know what? Let's watch this amazing documentary called Fantastic Fungi. It has nothing to do with psychedelics. It has nothing to do with trippy mushrooms. But then they start to get it. Then they're like, wait a minute. These mushrooms they're not just for what I thought they were.
Yeah.
They can change the world. And then after that, then have them watch, Michael Pollan's, the second part of his docuseries, How to Change Your Mind, the one on psilocybin. And you'll be surprised. You will be surprised at how people's minds change. I mean, I'll be honest, my parents, who are Colombian, so they're Latin, my mom's an 80-year-old Colombian woman. She actually bought me this from Colombia. Um,
Oh,
and I go, look,
wow.
my parents are proud of the fact that I use psychedelics. I
Yeah.
mean, it's again because their eyes were open, they were awakened to the transformation that they saw in me, and they were able to sort of put aside that stigma associated with it, and said, "Wow, here's a gentleman who was a bit lost at 55, whether through long life, depression or anxiety that we all it's a human trait. You know what I mean? Anxiety and depression is something that we all live with. It's all inside of us. It's how we deal with it. It's how we deal with it and how we manage it that puts us where we are. Um, but to have my parents, you know what I mean, open up and see the transformation and see how, I was able to sort of, give up my addiction or just able to sort of cut that tie of that addiction to them, they're grateful. They're grateful for what the mushrooms do. So again, if you have anyone that you want to talk to that you go, God, you know what, I wish I could tell them, have them watch Fantastic Fungi, and then have them watch How to Change Your Mind, and you're gonna see how people turn around, and they will see the transformation. I'm a big believer. People will see the transformation in you if you use it correctly, if you're on a good regimen, if you're on a good protocol, if you're true to yourself, as you become your more authentic self, people will see that. People will see it. And again, like we said, through intentions, through integration, you find who you really are, people will see that transformation.
Yeah, I agree with you. The proof is in the pudding, as the saying goes, and
Correct.
um I think that your mission with Cultivate Wisdom is wonderful, and that there should be more people out there saying, "Hey, like this, look at what's possible with this."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that being
Yeah.
said, the most important thing that I think we can do as people that are working with this medicine is being the example. Like you said, like we don't have to necessarily go and talk to everyone. The people in our
Mm.
life, especially the people that we're close with, when you start to change, when you start to actually have the effects of working with these medicines, they're going to come to you and they're going to be like,
Yeah.
"Hey,
Yeah.
Caesar, something's different. Like, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I've experienced this myself, of like, um, definitely with my mom, for instance, it wasn't easy having the first conversation with her of like, "Hey, I'm working with ayahuasca and psilocybin and doing these other things," but when she comes back and says, "You know what, something's different," like
Mm-hmm.
I can
Yeah.
tell the difference.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
that I think is the most important thing that we can do, is just live our truth and do our own work, because that
Exactly.
creates the example. People notice, that people can tell the difference in your energy, and um that's what's going to make them the most curious. And then of
Mm-hmm.
course
Mm-hmm.
there's folks like you that are out there creating these wonderful products, these wonderful shirts and hats, and helping to give us that push in that right direction of education, and um, just having more visibility for the movement. So
Yeah. Yeah. Paul Stamets talked about it during Canadelic down in Miami. He said, we're on a revolution, and we're the revolutionaries. We are the revolutionaries, and we need to be able to educate people and open people's mind. And that's why Cultivating Wisdom, the first vision of Cultivating Wisdom was an apparel brand, because I said at 55, you know what I mean? If I wear something that's tie-dye, that's psychedelic-ish, that's sort of, very mushroomy-ish, what are people going to say? He's a hippie. He's a hippie. He's a stoner. He's out tripping balls in the woods. And that's not what we want. So, in other words, the reason why I wear this shirt is twofold. One, someone who is also microdosing can come up to me and say, hey, you microdose? So do I. How's it going? What protocol are you on? How are you feeling? The other day I sort of felt this. Have you felt that? How have you reacted to it? I had a wonderful situation a couple of weeks ago where a woman stopped me in the supermarket and she saw me and she goes, do you microdose? And I said, how can you tell? Because of my smile? She goes, no, because of your shirt, dumbass. And we had a bit of a laugh. And then she talked about how before microdosing, she was drinking a bottle of wine a day. She'd come home, serve her first glass, you know what I mean? Forget about her kids being a pain, forget about the coworkers, at work being nuisance. And by the second glass, she forgot why she was drinking. And by the third, she forgot everything. And now because she's microdosing, she just feels like she's this wonderful person. But for me, the most important part is when you wear something like this and someone comes up to you because they have no one else to talk to and they go, "Do you microdose?" Yeah, I do. I saw that on that documentary, How to Change Your Mind. I read about it on CNN.com. I heard about it on NPR. Cultivate me with your wisdom so that I can sort of smile like you're smiling, so I can sort of find the benefits of microdosing. And that's why Cultivating Wisdom, the apparel brand, exists, so that we can start these conversations so that people who are interested can say, please cultivate me with your wisdom. I want to change. I need this elixir that you have found. And that's the mission. That's the mission of Cultivating Wisdom, the apparel brand. And that's where we want to take it. That's, again, like we said, we're the revolutionaries, and we need to let people know that this is going on. And by speaking, we help to break that stigma that exists with it, because it does exist. It does exist on many levels. On the levels because we were indoctrinated that drugs are bad, and that drugs are the enemy, and that drugs are evil. Or we also have these situations where I've talked to many people, my Generation Xers, who say, well, you know what? I tried that once back in college and it just didn't go so well. And I say, well, let me ask you a question. How much did you take? I don't know. Okay, that's the first problem. Number two, did you have intentions? No. Well, then that's the bigger problem. So microdosing or any psychedelic journey, with intentions, with knowing what you're doing because you've educated yourself. It's like that people, look, I didn't start microdosing until I was an expert in microdosing, until I educated myself, until I got to the point where I read something about it. I was like, I know that. I know about that. I know how to deal with that if that happens. Please do that. Please, if you are thinking, or if you want somebody, because again, we all need to be leaders. Most of the people I'm sure who are watching this podcast know the magics of psychedelics. Be leaders in this space. Be proud of what you do. It's like, look, I wear a suit. You know what? I'm a person who wears a suit. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a dad. And yes, I use psychedelics. I use them as a life performance enhancer. And I want people to know that. I want people to sort of see someone who's successful, who's a business owner, who manifests what's going on, and no, he doesn't look like a hippie. He looks like I do. He looks like I do. And if he changed and he transformed, then maybe I can do the same thing. So that's again, I implore people, please, please, let people know about your transformation. Let people know about how you've healed. Because, like Jonathan said it in the intro, I'm a true believer that if we heal in silence, those of us who have healed, if we heal in silence, part of the purpose of what the medicine has given us is forgotten. It's not there. That's part of the mission. Not only our own healing, but the healing for the rest of us, because we need this healing. And part of the motto of Cultivating Wisdom is to set a buffet table of wisdom so that we cultivate a better future. When we sit there and we talk to people, and we share our experiences, and we share our heart, and we share our love, and we share what we have around a buffet table. It could be at a coffee shop, it could be standing up, it's just a metaphor to have a table. But you'll see how wonderful it is. You see how wonderful it is for us to share what we have. And if it's sharing healing, if it's sharing transformation that we're doing, we'll change the world. We're going to cultivate a better future, but it's up to us. It's up to us to do that.
Yeah, you bring up like a really good point. That's something that I'm really watching very closely, which is that we're in this transitional time where the same people and that were indoctrinated by this message that drugs are bad, drugs are bad, period, end of story, that's it, right? um are now getting these sound bites from different places that, well, psilocybin is actually, can heal depression, heal anxiety, heal addiction, um, you know, MDMA, LSD, these different medicines, And I think that, so there's a lot of conflicting information, and especially if, there's folks like you and I that are very entrenched, right? Like you said, like the
Mm-hmm.
people
Mm-hmm.
listening to this podcast probably know more about psychedelics than the average person. But I
Correct.
also wonder about the average person that's getting these, maybe sound bites, and some of them are out of context, or they're seeing a headline, and that can be very conflicting information. So it's really important for us to be educated, and, like you said, for us to be sharing what's helped us, because we are in this really transitional time where we're going from this weird propaganda and almost brainwashing by the pharmaceutical industry, and by whatever the war on drugs was trying to do, to this place that we're moving in, which is that psychedelic medicine is the future and is going to help us heal and really
Yeah.
change the fabric of our culture and our society, through the things that we're cultivating, through the wisdom and the experience that we're cultivating.
Exactly. Exactly.
The mushrooms are such a great example of that too, because if you think about it, and I love that you brought up the fantastic fungi. um, it's this mycelial network. It's not just the mushroom fruits. It's this whole
No. No.
connected network
Yes.
underneath,
Yes.
that's the foundation of
Yes.
everything. And in a way, it's such a great metaphor for everything that's happening. This network is
Exactly.
continuing to grow and strengthen, and we all become stronger through that
Yeah.
network.
The mushroom becomes bigger.
Yeah.
The mushroom becomes bigger. The mushroom of humanity, the mushroom of us, as we connect, as we share. You saw the documentary. The sort of mycelium shares everything that's there, good and bad.
Right.
The mycelium is that buffet table, and the mushroom just gets bigger. That mushroom of humanity just gets bigger, just gets stronger as we proclaim this. And it's like Jonathan said, we're getting these mixed messages. You know what I mean? Because you're getting a soundbite here, you're getting a soundbite there. And that's why, what better place to have true information than from a human being?
Yeah.
And what better way for us to plant that seed than by cultivating that wisdom? I mean, I'm amazed at, like I said, I tell people, educate yourself and then go from there. But the messages I've gotten from people who have started to microdose because they have talked to me is priceless. It's, thank you so much for opening my eyes. Thank you so much for awakening me. Thank you so much for giving me this wisdom for me to heal myself. It's beautiful. Do that. If you talk to someone and they educate themselves, and they're invested in them, you're invested in them because you've opened their eyes. Reach out to them once in a while. Hey, did you start microdosing already? How's it going? Don't forget to integrate. Don't forget, make sure you're using their integration. Make sure it's just, again, plant that seed, and once in a while, put a little bit of water on there. Let's grow this community. Let's grow this mycelium that we have. Let's make the mushroom bigger, because that's what's going to make us a better humanity. That's what we need. We need humans who are healed. We need humans who look at each other and smile. We need more hugs. I mean, hello, as humans, we need more hugs. I need more hugs because I'm that type of person. I love feeling people's energy, but I know that there's people out there that a hug could make their day. And I know, we went through this whole COVID thing where we sort of the distance and don't get close. That we're past that now. We're past that. You know what I mean? Shake hands, smile, give hugs. Let's make this world a better place. That's the vital point, is to make sure that we cultivate this wisdom, that we share our experiences, that we connect with humans. That's, I mean, we animals do it, the plants do it. Let's us do it also. Let's have that human connectivity to make us better people. That is the vital point. The vital point is that connection that we make with each other. Yes, love oneself. That's the first thing you do in the morning. Before you pick up your phone, please, before you pick up your phone, go look at yourself in the mirror. Take a deep breath and smile and be in love with yourself, because then it's easier to love everything else. And then let's cultivate this wisdom to make a beautiful world that we have. I'm a true believer that it's up to us. It's definitely up to us, the humans, to do that. So Again, look at what Jonathan does. Look what you do on a daily basis. You know what I mean? You bring this healing. You connect people. You connect people to their hearts, to their minds. We should all be doing that. We should all be doing that. Doesn't mean that you have to have a podcast. That doesn't mean you have to, be on social media. No, but do it in your daily life.
Yeah.
Do it with your kids. Do it with your husband. Do it with your friends. Do it with your neighbors. Have that connectivity.
Yeah. Awesome. I wanted to give you the chance, because I know when we talked initially, you had mentioned also really wanting to share this message with people of your generation, of your age, and also
Yes,
within um, your cultural community. And
correct,
so I want
correct,
to,
correct.
would you like to speak about that at all? Because I
Yes,
think that's really
yes,
important
yeah.
to give
No,
you
of
that
course.
platform.
It is. No, it is, Jonathan. Again, like I said, my generation is hurting. My generation is hurting. We get to the point where you turn 50 and there's 50 this way, there's not 50 in front of you, right? And it's that we can do two things. We can sit there and sort of drown in our tears of what happened or what's going to happen, or we take control and go, this is the now, let me start from today moving forward to making everything a better life. So that's important. That these generation Xers, that my generation hears my voice, like I said, see myself as someone who's transformed, who wants to do better for himself and wants to do better for the people around him. And it's wonderful that we have people like Jonathan, and there's a lot of education out there. But I'm Hispanic. I'm Hispanic American. My parents came here when I was 4 years old, and yes, I'm American, but I'm very Hispanic. And the Hispanic community is in dire needs of this information. So it is my point this year. I'm going to do a lot more content in Spanish. I'm going to have some speaking engagements in Spanish, talking to people of my community of what's going on. I've already envisioned and actually bought a URL where we're going to have a conference in Colombia, South America in 2024. I'm putting together now the team of how we're going to put this together. It's going to be Cultivating Wisdom Conference in Colombia 2024, because the Latin community, which is a third of the population in the U.S., needs this information. If you're Hispanic and you've seen plant medicine work for you, talk to our community. Start with your parents. Start with your parents, because they're the ones. Start with your aunt. Start with your uncle. Talk to them about how you've healed and how you transformed. And even just not Hispanics. If you're African American, if you're Asian, whatever ethnicity you are, take advantage of the fact that you look like they do, that you speak like they do, because that information is not out there. And for me, yes, it is my mission, it's my goal, it's my duty to be able to bring this to the Hispanic community, because I am Hispanic. But it's all of our duties. It's all of our duties to get our people to then make that community bigger, make that mushroom, like I said, bigger. So yeah, Jonathan, it is my mission to get at the Hispanic community with my voice. Like I said, I'm not an integrator. There's wonderful, incredible people who are integrators out there who do an amazing, beautiful job. My wife is actually looking to train to be an integrator. My mission is to share my voice, and show the possibilities of transformation, because I'm living proof of it. I'm living proof of the transformation that psychedelic medicine can bring to one's life, to really find one's authentic self. And I hope to sort of touch people with that message. I hope, like I said, I want to poke at people's childhood curiosity, because when we were children, nothing could stop us. When we were children, everything was possible, but we fall into this default mode network of, this is the thinking, that's a stigma, that's bad, we all need to poke at people's childhood curiosity, and open up their hearts. And that's where it starts.
I appreciate that you're doing that work, and thank you for sharing that. And yeah, like recently, a couple of months back, I was talking with my dad, and he's in his early 70s, and he said it was so funny, like it was surreal. I was sitting there on the phone with him, and he said, "Do you know? Have you heard of this guy, Paul?" And I said, "Paul Stamets," and he said, "Yeah, yeah." And I said, "Uh-huh, yeah, I've heard of him." And he's like, "Yeah, he lives in LA." He's like, the LA Weekly had this whole thing about him, and um have you heard of microdosing? And I was like, I can't believe I'm having this conversation with my dad right now, like, wow.
Yeah,
So yeah, we had this
yeah,
whole, conversation, and, I said, yeah, I microdosed myself. Oh, really? Like, and he's had
yeah,
so many questions, and, it was like, I was sitting there just on the
yeah.
phone, like, I'm like, what is happening right now? This is a
He had
trip in and of itself,
yeah, yeah. He had his childhood curiosity poked at.
Yeah.
He had his childhood curiosity poked at. I actually, down in Miami, my parents live in Miami. I left them some medicine for them to sort of start a microdosing protocol, and you know, good for them that they're open. It's not. It's just, again, it's us educating them. It's us. They're going to see the transformation. They will see the transformation in each individual who's close to them, and they'll open up. It's, again, that propaganda is there. They've been brainwashed for, we were all
Right.
brainwashed for much too long. And a lot of us are now awake. And it's our mission, our job, to awaken as many people as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny, and he brought up, something where I was like, oh, I guess I wouldn't have thought of, when I think of microdosing, I'm more aligned with you. I'm thinking about depression and anxiety and
Mm-hmm.
PTSD
Mm-hmm.
and addiction. And he said, I read in that article that microdosing is good for memory and to keep Alzheimer's away, and that's something that's really important to me. I want my memory, I want my memory as long as
Yes,
possible. So I'm
yes,
like, hey,
yes,
whatever
yes,
works for you, man. Like, whatever is going to get you to the
yes.
table.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? There's actually, they're doing studies now on microdosing and the effects of psilocybin, which is wonderful. And it was Rick Dobbins who was talking about studies now that, no, actually, it was Paul Stamets who was talking about studies that they're doing with people over 60 on what they call the tap test, which is you sort of tap, see the consistency of the tap that you do. And it was amazing. It was sort of really like eye opening of people who were microdosing, how much better they were at it than people who weren't microdosing.
Mm,
So it's like we've talked about this, Jonathan. It's wonderful medicine. We see what it's done. Why not open the eyes and awaken, the people, the generation that was before us, all of
yeah.
us, and an open, honest, provocative conversation, to, again, poke at people's childhood curiosity. That's all of our missions. If I leave anything from this podcast, is for go out and poke at people's childhood curiosity about what plant medicine can possibly do, what microdosing can do, because we all need it. We all benefit. I put a meme the other day that said, "I've yet to meet anyone microdosing who's an asshole." So it's again, you find yourself, once you're your authentic self, you find your smiles, and once you smile, you spread those smiles, you spread the love. That's what's going to make us a better humanity.
I appreciate, you and what you're doing, and also, just how much you've been able to integrate the messages that you receive from the medicine. Because, for me, like, I'm on like the opposite end of the spectrum. Like, I had years of recreational, experiences that,
Yeah, yeah.
while when I look back on it and I think, okay, there's something that was subtly happening to
Mm-hmm.
to push
Mm-hmm.
me towards where I'm at now. And
Correct.
actually, I've had conversations with the mushroom since, where they pointed out, they like took me back in time, and they said, hey, remember that journey where you had that idea, and like that, do you realize like how that shifted your trajectory? um and it's been really cool to go back and kind of be able to integrate some of those experiences. But, you know for years of recreational experiences without like the intention and without the integration, versus somebody like you that's like, man, they're educated from the get-go, and they're really getting a lot
Yeah.
of the benefit out of those experiences. It's wonderful to see. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you, and I appreciate your mission, and what you're doing here in the world and in this space. And, you know one thing that I've noticed about you personally is your energy is infectious. Like, it seems to
Thank you.
be, like, you're living your mission, and you're also able to inspire others and bring them into that mycelial network that you're creating. And so, it's just a wonderful thing to see. And I really appreciate where you're at in this space, and really excited to see where, cultivating wisdom and whatever other projects you have, because I'm going to guess that there are other projects or things that, are coming,
Definitely.
like, just to
Yes,
see
definitely there
where
are.
you're going, man, because like you're a powerhouse.
We're just growing, man. We're branching out. We're branching out. There's a lot of things coming. Little sneak preview. The wife and I are going to start a couples who microdose podcast, because you share in your experience, you share with whoever you are. I think it makes it a lot more wonderful. Like I said, I'm going to have some speaking engagements. We're really looking forward to the conference in Colombia. So if you are Hispanic, if you are Latino, if you do speak Spanish, there'll be some great educational information there. And again, Jonathan, we're all growing. We're all growing. I love seeing the growth of everyone in this space, and I cheer every single person who is on in this space, because we're making the difference. We are like Paul Stamets says, we are the revolutionaries. We are the revolutionaries in this revolution of healing, of a path to betterment. So I'm there cheering every single one of you on, side by side.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of information, I know you guys have amazing shirts and hats and other products on your website. Is that also a place that people can go to learn more about microdosing and kind of educate themselves?
Yeah, the website, again, because cultivatingwisdom.net is more the apparel branch of Cultivating Wisdom. My Instagram site, cultivating wisdom dot it's cultivating dot wisdom. The Instagram account has a lot more of my personal journey, and me talking to people, and me being that leader of what I do. So that's important. And then there's also the Twitter account. I'm going to be really paying more attention to the Facebook account. So there's always information there. There's always informative information that we can sort of latch onto. And if I find an article that's wonderful, I mean, today Dennis Walker, who is the person behind Micropreneur, put on a wonderful article about how to talk to your children about drugs, because we have to have that discussion also, because let's be honest, if we don't educate our kids about the safety and responsible use of drugs,
Mm.
somebody else is going to do it, and you don't know who that somebody else is going to be. So there's really wonderful information out there. If I see something great, I'll sort of repost it. I'll post it on the Instagram, I'll post it on the LinkedIn. That mycelium is everywhere, right? It's one of these situations where find that information that most resonates with you, whether it's if watching me on my daily or every other day Instagram post of my practice, or whether it's the LinkedIn where there's more educational information. Just be in touch, be connected, and you'll find your way. I'm everywhere. My mycelium is everywhere.
Yeah, it's been super cool to see Dennis wearing the Cultivating Wisdom gear. And
He was such a wow. He was amazing. He's amazing. He's a great individual. He's so smart, and we need that. We need more. We need cynical thought provokers. Also, it's not. A lot of us have sort of found this wonderment, and we're cheerleaders for this movement. But at the same time, we need people who are going to say, okay, let's have honest conversations. Let's have honest conversations. And Dennis is definitely one of those people. So if you don't follow him, make sure he's on that follow. So he's not paying me for this. He knows he's not paying me for this, but but yeah, he's one of those people that definitely keep an eye on what he says, what he's doing, because he's one of the leaders. We're definitely side by side with him.
yeah, yeah, he's a great personality, and his his content is great. I get a big kick out of it, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Well, this has been a wonderful interview and a wonderful chance to connect further. And yeah, I've been really excited to see where Caesar's journey is taking him, and also getting messages from him about integrating cold showers and the cold exposure into his
mm,
practice.
mm.
We got to get you into one of the breathwork sessions soon. That would be
Yeah.
cool.
I would love that. I would love that, Jonathan. And again, like I said in the beginning, thank you for what you do. I mean, you're an integral part of this mycelium. You're an integral part of what we do. I know how much of a supporter you are of us, and I really appreciate that. I love when you wear our gear and show it off on your Instagram. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I know you do it from the heart. So again, we're all in this together. We're all in this together. You set a buffet table of wisdom, on a daily basis with your content and with what you do and how you help people. So, keep doing what you're doing, brother. You know that I'm there cheering you on 100%. And again, we're all in this together.
Yeah. So where should people go to connect with you to find more about cultivating their own wisdom?
Perfect. Definitely on Instagram, cultivating.wisdom on the Instagram. Again, if you want to manifest the fact that you are microdosing and that you're a better person and you want other people, go to cultivatingwisdom.net, pick up some merchandise. If you use the promo code gratitude20, because we should all be grateful of everything we have in life, you get a 20% discount. So definitely go check that out. There's wonderful, wonderful gear from, t-shirts to hats to, you know, uh, canvases like that, which is wonderful. So definitely go check us out. Definitely cultivate that wisdom. Spread much love. Spread much love everywhere you go. If I only ask for two things, is that you cultivate wisdom and you spread much love, and we'll make people we'll make a better humanity.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Caesar, for being here and for sharing your experience and your wisdom, cultivating your own wisdom by your example and by your mission. And yeah, I really appreciate you being here. And what a wonderful conversation.
Perfect, Jonathan. Much love to you, to everyone that's watching this.
Yeah. So if you're watching this, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a comment. If you're listening on any one of the many podcast networks that we're at, I would appreciate a comment, subscribe, and follow Caesar and Cultivating Wisdom as well. Definitely an important brand, an important mission that he has. So until next time, folks, continue to practice, continue that integration, because the practice is really the point of all this. Like we were talking about in the conversation, if we don't take those experiences and integrate them into our lives, it's only worth so much. So the integration is really the vital point. Keep doing that, and we'll see you next time on the podcast here.